Ladies and gentlemen, we are so first class here, so first class, I have to introduce myself. That's very humbling. So I'm Randy Robbins. I'm lucky enough, don't stop now, Harry. I'm lucky enough to be able to teach this class, and I'm here to MC the show today, and I'll begin MCing from here. Some of you may have noticed that there was a basket outside soliciting donations to OLLI. It reminds me of one of the comics in my class some years ago did a small bit about buskers. You know what buskers are? People who are outside playing music with an open fiddle container and they want you to put tips in. So we noticed that for music, it's pretty easy, but for comedy, how do you do this? So a guy, this fellow suggested that he put up a sign, jokes, $1. And a fellow comes up, looks at the guy and says, a rabbi, a priest, and a poet got together, and he bent down and took out $1. Cautionary tale, don't do that today. The basket is back inside, but at the end of the show, it'll be out there. OLLI has been very generous to us, the comedy group, giving us this room, giving us the support of tech support. So we would appreciate your generosity, and that's all I have to say about that. Let me welcome you to the second coming of the show that we did in November. How many of you were there? Okay, well then you can relate to all of this. Want to break the ice a little bit, so everybody please turn and shake hands with the person on your left. So if you're laughing, it means you got the joke. If you shook hands with somebody, you might want to rethink that, because that was a joke. Setup was creating something that you could not do successfully, and the punchline was, well, you saw the punchline because evidently you laughed. That's what I teach in the stand-up comedy class. A joke consists of a punchline preceded by a setup. And the most distance between the setup and the punchline, the funnier the joke. I use this all the time. It's not my joke, but I can't do better. So a guy says that his wife ran off with his best friend. Boy, do I miss him. That's a joke. Sorry? I have a heckler already? Someone from my class? Oh, that's what I'm accustomed to. I'm seriously lucky enough to be able to do this every year, or mostly every year. And every year is very different. We like to have about 10 people sign up because we know that at the end of the term, we're not going to have 10. People are going to drop. One year, I started, big mistake. I had 7 on register. I should have known better. First day, a guy in the class says, "Why does comedy have to be funny?" Next week, we had 6. In that next week, I asked the class to tell me, so why are you taking the class? And a guy said that he's new to Asheville. He saw the catalog back when it was printed, and he said, I could never find a class more difficult than taking this one. So I said, well, I'm very flattered because it is difficult, but so you think you're funny, right? He said, no, not really. Next week we had 5. We ended up with 1. No, it's true. And so what I did was somewhat creatively, I was able to bring back people who had performed before, and we made it an alumni show, and we featured this one woman who stuck it out all the way, and it worked. And the size of the crowd today is testament to the fact that OLLI is ready to laugh. We have extensively put out feelers for stuff for people, OLLI Chat, the OLLI Observer, word of mouth, and we are very gratified to see such a crowd. There are some chairs, I think, in the very back there. Can you take them out and find a place to sit? Oh, it's so gratifying to be sold out again. And I didn't have to do anything except to show up. So that's great. So if nobody has any questions, comments, or concerns, why don't we start the show? That was cheap applause, but I'll take it. Have we run out of chairs? Hope not. We have a few more chairs over to my left. Great. So why don't we begin? This is a repeat of the show that we did in November with additions. And one of the additions is that everyone had the opportunity to look at the video and find where they wanted to do stuff to improve. And we got together as a group and we talked back and forth. One of the great things about this class, as well as the others I've taught, is how we work together. When somebody was putting out the idea of a joke and another person came up with a punchline. It's a beautiful thing. The best example of that I could say before we bring up our first comic is that once a woman was stuck in writing a joke. She said, I love to give parties, but I don't like people. And we're sitting there trying to figure out a punchline for that, and somebody called out and said, I got it. I love to give parties. I don't like people. So I give a lot of parties. I just don't give my address. I wish I could take credit for that, but I'm afraid that the person who did that might one day listen and hear me do that, and I'll get sued. Because there's litigation everywhere. Here's a place where there won't be litigation. I want to bring to the stage a guy who is, I'm going to say this about everybody, someone who's very, very funny. He very quietly shoots out ideas for other people. He's going to give you his interpretation of comedy right now. Welcome to the stage, Bill Petz. Good luck. You need to press the button.
Got it. Check, check. Let's try this again. Welcome. It's good to see all of you. How you doing? How's your A1C? Seems like medicine is becoming an alphabet soup. We've got A1C, MS, STD, HIV, and the dreaded ED, erectile dysfunction. You have to have some understanding because it's not easy. It's not hard either. There's a lot of drug commercials. A lot of them say, don't take this if you're allergic to it. Duh. Isn't that what allergic is about? If you took it before and it hurt you, don't take it again. Another thing that we worry about with medicine is all the side effects. There's just a lot of them, and they're all in small print. Some of them are pretty bizarre. Here's one, I hope. You may experience headaches, nausea, reduced immune response, death, blurred vision, increased sensitivity to life. Death buried in the middle. But even with these warnings, we still take them. we're part of a drug culture, that many of us were part of a drug culture when we were younger. In that time, people said, don't take this, you don't know what's in it. Do you remember the frying pan? And don't say no. I mean, just say no. Now it's changed. Big Pharma is our manufacturer, CVS is our dealer, and the slogan is, please take it, say yes. And we do, even though there's all the warnings. Are we the greatest generation or what? As some of you know, and some of you figured out, I have Parkinson's disease. I've joined the group of movers and shakers. About 18 years ago, when Parkinson's showed up on my doorstep, I decided not to fight it. If I'd fight it, my body would be the battleground, and all the collateral damage would be on me. So I decided to go to the ancient law of hospitality. Sometimes that works out. Of hospitality, of welcome the stranger and be a good host. So after 18 years, Parkinson's is doing okay with me, and I'm okay with it after that long. As long as it picks up its socks, doesn't leave dishes in the sink, we're cool. And I'm learning a lot from that. This old white boy's learning some new ticks. My dog likes the fact that I've got tremors, gets really good scratches. He also likes the fact that my Parkinson diet is called can't keep it on the fork. So I'm losing weight and he's getting fat. Tremor also improves my Joe Cocker imitation. The social awareness that I have to have with Parkinson's and the tremor, I have to remember not to stand with my hands in front of me. Or worse, to sit with my hands in my lap. One of the other things about Parkinson's is the mask. My face doesn't have much expression. My wife doesn't like it because she doesn't know exactly what's going on behind the mask. But it's great for poker. And it's good if you ever get to Final Jeopardy as well. Another one of the symptoms is a stiffness and a reduced range of motion. So if you want to laugh sometime, just watch me try and get out of my wife's sports car. It's like the Miata saying, don't go, don't go. One of the other difficult symptoms is everything gets real slow. It's at the speed of dark. That's a good line. Speed of light would be fast, speed of dark is slow. Just reaching for a beer, I'm like doing Tai Chi. So slow can be good, except when I gotta pee. When you're over 70, we're sort of in the overtime of life. And we don't get a 2-minute warning from our bladder anymore. It's like, now is the time. In a minute, turn off the TV, close the book, whatever. Now is the time. So, I'm not incontinent, I'm just incompetent. And I'm left-handed, so I'm coming at things from the wrong angle. But I found a tentative solution, that I could start the process on the way to the bathroom, and then when I got there, I'd be good to go. So one night at dinner, my bladder says, it's showtime. So I got up from the table, excused myself, went down the hall, and my wife yells, wait till you're at the end of the hall. And I turned to look, and I realized I never knew Chili's had a salad bar. Michael Jackson has a new book out. No, not Michael Jackson, Michael J. Fox. They're two very different guys. Michael Jackson is still trying to get into heaven by convincing St. Peter that he lived like a priest. Michael J. Fox's book is called Always Looking Up. This is me looking up. Or this way, that's how I finish a beer. Otherwise I don't get to the end of it. But Michael J. Fox's book is called Looking Up, which I don't think I can handle. I'll stick my neck out on that. But I could go for Head First as my memoir title. But there's some advantage to have the head down like this. My retirement income is picking up. Just last week I picked up $4 I never would have seen otherwise. Michael J. Fox would have never seen it. Like a lot of OLLI folks, I've had more than one career. My first career, I was a minister. Yeah, people who know me say, God, you really have changed. I did the whole bit. I went to seminary, got an MDiv, Master of Divinity. God is divine, and I'm master of it. It's blasphemy. I got a degree in blasphemy. But it didn't take me long to realize I was in the wrong place in the church. I couldn't figure out the intersection of the highway to heaven, stairway to heaven, and the highway to hell. So I left the ministry. This is not my first time at doing this comedy. I've taken Randy's class a couple times. Well, actually more than a couple. I'm still trying to get it right. So I try to learn from other comics. I watch a lot of YouTube, watch the comics. One of the things that I found is they use the F word an awful lot. F word your mother, F word your college or your team, F word this, F word that. So just to feel like I'm a professional in doing what they do, I'll say it just once. Facebook. Fucking Facebook. Thank you very much.
Bill Petz, everybody. No, that's mine. Leave that. There you go. Bill Petz, once again. Good job. So I forgot to put up a slide earlier. I want you to look at it. Got it? All right, if anyone's offended, send a letter to Bill Petz. That's great. Bill's great. He was in my first class, and on the first day, I was probably more nervous than everybody else in the room. But I brought each of them up to the front of the classroom, put a mic in their hand so that we could recognize this is, you know, one of the pieces, one of the segments of doing a class is handling the mic. And he came up, and he was like this, shaking. And I waited until the break, and I went up to him and I said, you know, it's not unexpected to be nervous, you know, when you're holding the mic, especially for the first time. He said, nervous? I'm not nervous. I have Parkinson's. And for someone to be able to take a disease as serious as Parkinson's and make a joke out of it, I salute you. Great job. Our next comic is actually making her first appearance. She was in the class. She took ill the week before the show, was unable to perform. So she is one of the reasons why we're doing this again, give her the opportunity. So a warm welcome for Barbara Guffey. Barbara. I want to make sure this is on. Press the light until it's red.
Yeah.
There you go.
Here, you want this one?
Oh, I'm sorry. Of course.
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me? All right, cool. So I'm retired. I used to be a teacher and a middle school assistant principal, right? I miss some things about the job, but most things I don't miss. For example, when I was a teacher, we used to play this electronic trivia game to help the students learn their like vocabulary words, and they loved it because they got to pick their own username. Well, soon I looked up on to the screen to see names like Tommy Farts, Harry Balls, Anita Dump. I did have Anita in the class, but her last name wasn't Dump. I saw where this was going, and I quickly put a stop to it. Okay, everybody stop it. All right, everybody stop. Use your real name for your username, please. Next time I looked up, I saw real name, real name, real name. And the distractions were crazy. I used to keep the blinds down in the classroom because if students looked out the window and saw two squirrels mating, the class was done for like 10 minutes. A snowflake, we were done for the day. They knew they were going home. But one of the biggest distractions we had was the fart. It was always loud and smelly, and then the game started. You did it, no, you did it. Whoever smelt it dealt it. But the real distraction came when they thought it was a fart, and it turned out wet. Oh. Bless your heart. And the boogers, they're always picking their noses, always. We had to remind them, the lunchroom, when they went to the lunchroom, that boogers were not on the menu, hello? I mean, did you bring enough for everyone? And the penis drawings. We had penis drawings everywhere. In the girls' bathroom, the boys' bathroom, on the desk, sometimes on the homework assignment. Big ones and small ones and fat ones. Some of them had their names written on them. Some of them just had the word "suck it" over it. One time I had a student in my office, and I said, "You need to sit here and think about what you've done." I come back about 2 minutes later to a small penis written on my office desk. And the outfits, they're crazy. The outfits are insane. It's like, pull your pants up. Pull your pants up. Nobody wants to see if you're wearing Fruit of the Looms. The games were crazy too. They had this game called pantsing. And you'd walk up behind a student and pull their pants down. Pull their pants down. And sometimes they would do that to find out the student wasn't wearing any underwear. But some of the things I guess I do miss about my job, I don't go to the mall much, but when I do, I tell the kids, stop running. Keep your hands to yourselves. When I go out to dinner with my spouse, I tend to eat in 20 minutes or less. Take my plate up to the kitchen, separate out my silverware. But the main thing I miss, and I miss it the most, is being called a bitch. I would say, that's Miss Bitch to you, hello? Thank you.
Barbara Guffey, everybody. Did you take the mic? Beautiful. Good job. Barbara Guffey. First class all the way. Pants jokes. That's great. Ms. Bitch. Well, ready for more? Well, let's do it. So next guy, really funny guy. Look out for his accent. See if he's got the same New York accent that I come up with. Welcome to the stage, James Mowitz. Go.
Thank you. It's nice meeting you.
Good to see you too.
I was born on a farm and raised in Nebraska. My parents had 5 kids, all for the sake of labor. That's right, we had no migratory labor, no unions, no strikes, just kids working. And the fashion statement at that time was bib overhauls and hand-me-downs. We went to a really strict rural church. Boys sat on one side, girls sat on the other side, moms, dads, babies, uncles, aunts, all in the center under the watchful eye of the minister. In those days, most sermons were about sin and the wages of sin. Well, you know, I didn't understand wages because, well, we weren't paid anything. So, you know, it would start out this way. The minister would slowly climb the pulpit, and he'd look out over his sheep, and he would say, "You are all sinners. You sin when you play. You sin when you breathe. You sin when you eat. And you sin when you lay. And the wages of sin are death." And he would look at us boys down there. And my buddy Daryl always give him the finger under his suit coat, you know. Anyway, he would continue on. He'd say, "It all started with a talking snake and an apple." And the snake would say, "Eve, take a bite of the apple." And Eve said, "Oh, okay." And she took a bite. And then she said, "Adam, come over here. Adam, take a bite of the apple." "Oh, come on, Eve. I already ate. I'm not hungry." "Take a bite." Okay. You know. Wow. Eve, you got parts. Oh, and that's when clothes were invented. And, you know, ever since then, Adam's had to pay for the wages of sin with Apple Pay and a snakeskin wallet. Anyway, we as kids enjoyed visiting our grandpa and grandma. They lived in Minnesota. Now, Grandpa and Grandma were Norwegians. And Grandpa was a farmer. He loved to fish. Grandma was a great cook. She had a big garden. And the story was, on their honeymoon, they were headed for Duluth. And Grandpa was driving, and he got really brazen, you know. And he put his hand just on the inside of my grandma's knee. Well, they kept driving, you know, for quite a while. And then my grandma turned to him and said, "You could go farther." And he did. He drove all the way to Duluth. Anyway, Grandpa and Grandma, after they'd been married a little bit, decided they were going to join the Lutheran Church. This is what you do when you live in that area. You become a member of the Lutheran Church. And so they went in and talked to the minister, and he said, "Well, if you want to be a member, you're going to have to prove you're worthy of it. You're going to have to abstain from sex for 30 days. Can you imagine that? Anyway, my grandpa says, "Well, we'll give it a try, you know." And so 30 days later, they came to the minister, and the minister said, well, folks, how did it go? And my grandpa says, well, we were pretty good up till day 28, you know. And then, you know, Lena, she was leaning over that bag of their potatoes, and I couldn't help myself. I just had to have her right there. And the minister says, well, folks, you know, maybe you can come back in a year or two and try again. Yeah, well, the grocery store owner wasn't too happy with us either. He told us not to come back. So Grandpa, you know, as a farmer, he was doing pretty good. And he decided he could buy himself a brand new John Deere, the very best, John Deere 4-row corn picker. He was so excited, he told all the neighbors. And then the next morning, when Lena came in with breakfast, well, he kind of swatted her on the rear and he said, you know, Lena, you're getting to be as big as a 4-row corn picker. Well, that night they were in bed, and Grandpa had a twinkle in his eye. He kind of reached over and he just tapped Lena slightly, and he said, Lena. And boy, she rolled over with her back to him, you know. So he isn't going to give up, you know, he's going to keep trying. And he taps her again. Lena, nothing, not a thing. He's not going to give up. He taps her really, really, really hard, and he goes, Lena, please. And she rolls over and she looks him in the eye and she says, you want me to start this here 4-row corn picker that's $40,000 and pick one little ear of corn? Now, Grandma decided that she was going to get a job. She wanted to be independent. And she noticed there was an opening at the chicken factory there in Bloomcast, Minnesota. And so she went in to get the job. And there was a young man who saw her come in, and my grandma reminded him so much of his grandma. And he said, come on over here, I'll help you fill out your application. And he said, okay, what's your name? And she says, well, my name is Lena Svensson. Oh, that's a beautiful name. And I see you have blue eyes. Yeah, I do. And he writes that down. And he says, now, Lena, how tall are you? I be 5'8" tall. Oh, that's a nice height. And Lena, this job is for chicken plucking. Are you a good chicken plucker? Oh, I be the best in all of Minnesota. Well, that's good enough, right, for me. And then he noticed on the application it said, wait. Oh, you know, he didn't want to embarrass Lena because she was a big woman, so he thought he'd use humor. And he said, well, you know, Lena, you're a big, beautiful woman. Now, if you were a man, Lena, why, I'll bet you could play for the Green Bay Packers. And Lena looked at him, got a scowl on her face, and said, oh, no, I only play with OLLI's Packer. And anyway, later on in life, you know, as time progressed, Grandpa noticed in the paper that there was something about Social Security. This is when this just came out, you know, and he told Lena, he says, it says Social Security, you can get money from Social Security. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to go downtown, and I'm going to give myself a try, you know. She says, oh, Bill, you never get that. No. Well, he went downtown. Later on in the afternoon, he comes back, and he's waving a check in front of Lena. See, they gave me some money. They gave me some money. She says, well, what did you do? Well, I opened my shirt, and I showed him my white hairs on my chest. And they gave me this money. She says, well, you should have taken your pants down. You would have got full disability out of them. Grandma was feeling really bad one day. You know, they're getting older, and gosh, her arms are getting flabby, and her breasts are hanging down, and her hips are getting wide and fat, and her legs like sausages, and she's feeling really bad. And she says, Ollie, I could use a really good compliment just about now. And Ollie looks her up very carefully up and down, and he says, "Well, you got a pretty good eyesight there, Lena." You know. Anyway, let's see. So anyway, after that had happened, I've got to think a second. Ollie and Lena, when they celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary, you know, they went to a restaurant called the Ocean View Restaurant. Yeah, and they went there because, you know, Lena liked her wine. Oh, yeah. And 25th wedding anniversary, Ocean View Restaurant. Yeah. And that's because they had great chicken selection then, you know. 50th wedding anniversary, Ocean View Restaurant. Wheelchair accessibility, you know. So, 60th wedding anniversary. Well, you can guess it. They all went to the Ocean View Restaurant because they'd never been there before, you know. Just got it. One more thing here. Give me a second. I left one out. I'll see if I can find it. If I can't, we'll... Anyway, there, you know, I can't think of the other thing I was going to tell you, but one of the things Forrest Gump used to say about life, he said, well, life is like a box of chocolates. And then Kinky Freeman came out with the saying that time flies like an arrow and fruit flies like a banana. Thank you very much.
James Mowitz, everybody. Let's hear it for James.
Thank you.
Come on down. James Mowitz. How about that New York accent? Yeah. Ready for more? Yeah. Okay. Coming up now, great lady, very funny. Let's welcome Liza Cherner. Liza.
They say life begins at the end of your comfort zone, but I think it's a balance. If you choose to leave your comfort zone, it's challenging and exciting. If you're forced out, it's scary. Like the difference between skydiving and getting shoved out of a helicopter. It's a balance. When I was a kid, we moved a lot. I went to 13 different schools. So I'm almost as good as packing as I am at not making friends. I was a professional new kid, so what comfort zone? And I was shy, very shy. And I wore glasses, thick glasses, the ones with a lot of pupil. I looked kind of like an owl who really liked reading. Schools have a hierarchy, from popular to prey. I never dropped in as a lion, but I tried really hard not to be a flailing gazelle either. And some of those schools were tough. The National Guard was stationed at my junior high one year, and I found that survival at a new school, especially tougher schools, were a lot like survival at prison, same skills. You need to keep your head down, your eyes open, never show fear, don't be anybody's bitch. I learned a lot from those years. I learned resilience, independence, how to make a shiv out of a number 2 pencil. I spent the first part of my life, I think, trying to build a comfort zone. Then as I got older and got more comfy, I'm always trying to get out of it. So it's a balance. Actually, I'm thinking now of trading in my old comfort zone or leaving my old comfort zone for a younger, hotter model comfort zone. As an adult, I wanted to try some things I missed as a kid. Like I tried ice skating. So I go to the rink, I strap on the skates, and I hit the ice. And literally, I hit the ice. I hit the ice all the way to the wall that I then used to guide myself around the rink. About halfway around, I run into some kids who are also using the wall, who are getting a big kick out of an adult doing that. And we come face to face. We stop, stare each other down. So who has the right of way here? I don't know, and I don't care. I'm not going down. So I'm reduced to playing chicken with children, out of the comfort zone. So travel gets me out of my comfort zone. I really like going to new places. The getting there and the getting home is getting a little uncomfortable, and not in the this is making me a better person kind of way. Airlines shrinking seats in crowded planes, delays, cancellations, rude passengers. The golden age of air travel is officially over. The friendly skies are gone. And I think, this is not the future that the Jetsons promised us. And at the airport, the kiosk now runs interference before you get to the counter. So you wait in line to wait in line. You have to print out your own boarding pass and print out the baggage tags. Now you need a wrench to make sure that the doors are tight. Next, we'll fly our own planes. If they try to give me one more job, I'm insisting on a union. And have you noticed how hard it's getting to talk to a live person if you ever need help? Customer service is customer avoidance now. Anytime I call a business, the first thing I get is the recording that tells me, listen carefully as the options have changed. No, they have not. They have never changed in all the times I've called. I've been on hold long enough to learn press 2 for Spanish in 3 different languages. And I hate when I'm holding, listening to the delightful music, when suddenly there's a click like a person's going to pick up. Hello? But it's just the recording reminding me to continue to hold so that my call can be ignored in the order of which it was received. I'm waiting on hold because I have 0 options left to get help. But the recording likes to break in once in a while and urge me to see the website. Did you know you can see our website to get help? Sure. Go to www.asnowballschanceInHell.com. So I'm taking more road trips. I took a trip recently with a friend, and we needed to use a bathroom, and we saw a sign for a place called Buc-ee's. So we took the exit. Have you been to Buc-ee's? Yeah. Apparently, I'm late to this party as all of America is already there. There's a traffic line to get in. There's 100+ gas pumps, and every single one is occupied. The giant parking lot is full. The overflow parking is full. No trucks, though. No 18-wheelers allowed, it says on the sign, because Buc-ee's is keeping it classy. Inside, the place is huge. I can't even see to the other side of the building. To get to the bathrooms, I'm going to need to go through acres of merchandise. Hats, towels, T-shirts, housewares, made in China gifts, all with Buc-ee logos. If you can put a beaver on it, they have it for sale. Now, they could have picked anything for a logo. I don't know. What's with the grinning beaver? It turns out that the founder, when he was a kid, his nickname was Beaver. And he had a dog named Buck. But a kid with the nickname of Beaver took some serious teasing. But maybe he grew up and decided to own it, take back his power, show those bullies. So now he's getting rich and they're all eating his beaver nuggets. And speaking of food, it's everywhere. There's a barbecue station, a jerky wall, a fudge station, a banana pudding station. There are assembly lines of food. It's like Walmart and Cracker Barrel had a baby. Call it wall crack. Do you know they sell a 7.5-pound bucket of bacon grease? It should come with its own defibrillator. It makes the perfect gift for that someone who has completely given up. Or for someone who just loves bacon but just wishes it would come in a liquid form. Buc-ee's is America, in all its sweaty, cargo short-wearing in the wintertime glory. Open 24/7, except judging by the crowd, maybe January 6th.
Oh.
I get to the bathroom line. The bathroom's huge, but it is spotless as advertised. There's red and green lights over the stalls to keep the crowd moving. So when it's your turn, the light turns green, go, time to go. You go face to face with the person coming out of your stall, which is awkward. You know something both comfortable and uncomfortable at the same time? A warm toilet seat. So back to the car to leave. It's another traffic jam. It's like leaving a concert or a football game. Buc-ee's is not a rest stop, nothing quick about it. It's a destination, a uniquely American experience. So now I'm going to head back to my old comfort zone. Thank you.
Liza Cherner, everybody. Well, once again for Liza. My hat is off to anyone who could make a January 6th joke. That makes people laugh. Well, let's keep it rolling. You don't need to hear from me yet. The next guy coming to the stage, well, his name is Louis Siegel. Let's welcome him. He's a very funny guy. Go for it.
There, maybe. I don't know.
If you don't talk too loud,
Should
it'll
be okay.
stay like it is.
All right. Can I say, we'll try this.
Try it now.
Hello, everybody. I am glad to be here. Sort of. I usually kind of stay away from large groups, especially big crowds like this. Well, you all have been great. Thank you. But actually, I am rather introverted. I grew up in a house with a lot of noisy siblings, so I got used to spending a lot of time outdoors. I'm kind of like that today also, but now I have a bunch of noisy grandkids. They are very energetic, so when they visit, I have to cut out all distractions. I will turn off the computer, cut off the phone. My favorite thing to do when they visit is to head up to the mountains, take a nice nature walk. Sometime I might even bring one or two of them with me. But as an introverted kid, I learned that I could get away with stuff. Kind of flew under the radar. People would ignore me. Started thinking I was pretty clever. I especially like pulling things over on teachers and other adults. Went to the drive-in movies once with a couple of friends. One of them hid in the trunk of the car to avoid paying the hefty 50-cent ticket price. I decided to one-up him, so I walked in through the exit. I mean, who's going to think of that, right? Apparently, the motorcycle cop just inside the gate had thought of that, yeah. Ordered me on the back of his bike, took me up to the front. And luckily, I was a couple of weeks shy of turning 17, so I could not be arrested. But he did order me to call home. Not a very happy prospect. I dialed the number really slowly, prayed that no one would answer. And luckily, my big sister, Mindy, picked up. "Don't tell Mom," I said. Explained what was going on. "I'm on my way," she said. "Don't worry." "Thank you, Mindy." A couple of minutes later, here she comes. I practically run to the passenger side of the car, open the door, plop down. right on Mom's lap. But I learned 3 important things that night. First, next time I want to go to the drive-in movie, just hide in the trunk. Second, don't trust Mindy. And the third lesson is probably the biggest one. Never trust Mindy. Well, years later, I was still trying to get away with things. I thought I could outsmart the world. In fact, I traveled a lot. I went to Greece once, met a girl in Athens named Vaso, and she showed me around, helped me learn Greek. We were having a good time, so I invited her to join me on a trip to Mykonos. I'd like to, she said, but my parents won't approve. She lived at home. Her dad was a Greek Orthodox priest, very, very strict. And then she said, maybe I could go if I tell them we're engaged. Whoa. Hey, I mean, do what you got to do, I said. Well, a couple nights later, she invited me for dinner at the family home. And it turned out to be our engagement party. When her dad came over and started reciting a blessing, I just thought it was over the food, but then he pulled 2 gold rings out of his pocket. They were engraved with our names. Yeah, that was awkward. I think Vaso saw me turning green or something because she leaned in and whispered, "Don't worry, just play along." Well, so I did. And her mom, who spoke very little English, came over and kind of tugged me over to the phone and said, "Call Mother." Oh, no, many drachmas, we don't want to do that. She just pointed at that phone. Call. Well, I dialed the number very slowly. I prayed no one would answer. I especially prayed Mindy wouldn't answer. Well, this time my mom picked up, and in a very hushed tone, I explained what was going on. And I guess that satisfied Vaso's parents, because the next day they insisted that I check out of my hotel and move in with the family. I did. Yeah. But then finally we got to go to Mykonos. And that was spectacular. It was a beautiful island, great beaches, gorgeous women. I mean, I couldn't talk to any of them because I was engaged. Well, on the way back to Athens, I decided that I had to break up with her, and I started sort of planning that in my head. And at dinner that night, Vaso translated as her parents invited me in particular to join them on their annual trip to Zakynthos for the long Easter holiday. A month on another beautiful island? Okay, the breakup could wait. Well, it turned out that my brother and a couple of his buddies were going to be in Crete for their spring break. So I left Zakynthos for a few days to join them. On the way there, I stopped for a night at the family's home in Athens. And I got to thinking about how in Zakynthos, Vaso and her mom had been discussing wedding plans. Talked about us living in the U.S. Yeah. Well, I would turn to Vaso when this would happen, and I would say, I think this is kind of going too far. And she would just say the same thing. Don't worry, just play along. Then I got to thinking, the first time Vaso had mentioned us living in the U.S., her mom wasn't even in the room. So I made a mental note. Don't trust Vaso. The next morning, I wrote her a note. I placed the ring on top, and I left. I mean, it had to be done. But I was so anxious heading for the ferry to Crete. I kept looking around, expecting some motorcycle to come on, order me back on the bike and take me back to Vaso or make me call home or something. But I did make it to Crete, finally free. I met up with the guys. We took a beautiful hike one day, and we ended up at a cafe in a little seaside village. And the waiter kept bringing us dishes that we hadn't ordered. Tasted great, but, you know, we protested, and he would just say, "Enjoy, don't worry." Uh-oh, don't worry. I sort of expected him to lean in and whisper, "Just play along." Well, when the bill came, we had been charged for every single dish. Yeah, we were pretty outraged, so we just put down the money for what we had ordered and left. And then we noticed 4 really large men, including the waiter, trailing behind us. And our friend Simon stopped short and said, "Guys, I don't want to die tonight. Let's just pay him." He handed over a wad of drachmas. And later that night, we did the math. We'd been overcharged by $3. The name of that village, by the way, I want to get the Greek right. Sophakia. Seriously. Thank you.
Yeah. One more time for Louis. I wonder about Mindy to this day. Yeah, so Louis mentioned being introverted. I want to say something about that. A surprising number of comics are introverted. You'd be surprised to know that, but it's true. And the next comic coming to the stage is very introverted. So I would ask you, lean in a little bit so that you can hear her, and welcome to the stage someone called Julia Lochran.
Yeah, perfect. Hey, everybody, can you hear me? If you can't hear me, raise your hand. All right, looks like everyone can hear me. That was a joke. I have been told that I am loud, and I'm especially loud if I've been drinking, if you know what I mean. I think that's why they call it alcohol by volume. Might happen to you as well. But I've been reading on the internet, that World Wide Web, about the benefits of a loud voice. And I've read that people who are loud show confidence. They command attention. But what I really like about being loud is I can get the bartender's attention when I'm at a bar. Bartender, I need another drink. Anyway, I'd like to thank everyone for coming on this Sunday without football. It's so great to see those couples back together again. As we all know, next Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday. And I hear Taylor Swift's boyfriend is going to play, so that's good. So I have a friend who I just found out bought 2 tickets to the Super Bowl a year ago. And when he bought these tickets, he did not realize that it'd be on the same day as he was getting married. These tickets are on the 50-yard line. They're box seats, and he got them for just $2,500 in Vegas. So anyway, now that he's realized the error of his way, he's looking for someone to take his place. And the wedding's at Grace Episcopal at 3 o'clock next week. The bride's name is Sheila. She'll be wearing white. And I hear she's a good cook, so. Yeah, it's nice that you could all come out this afternoon. I'm going to make sure that Randy gets us all out of there so we can all make it to the early bird senior buffet at the Golden Corral. It's great. Yeah, you know, I've been doing my own shopping these days. Off Tunnel Road, there's a store called Five Below. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's near a party store. Anyway, everything in the store is $5 or less. It's like the Nordstrom of dollar stores. Well, back to the Super Bowl. My husband is what he calls professionally sports challenged. He doesn't know a lot about football. He's trying to learn, though. And we have been happily married for 25 years. Wow. Yeah, our 40th anniversary is coming up this New Year's Eve. So I can share with you the key to a happy marriage, though. The key to a happy marriage is to always let your spouse have the last words. And those words are, yes, dear. When we got married, my husband said he'd married Mrs. Right. He just didn't know that my first name was Always. As we get older, it's important for us to stay fit. So I go to the YMCA up here at Woodfin. And the other day I noticed an older gentleman who was looking very interested in this very cute, much younger, I should say, blonde. And I overheard him when he went up to the trainer, and he asked the trainer, "What's the best machine I can use here to impress this woman?" And she said, "Oh, that machine would be in the lobby. It's the ATM." But we are getting older, and I'm very concerned about my husband's hearing. You know, there's such stigma about wearing hearing aids. But I decided to test my husband's hearing the other day. I came home after grocery shopping, and I walked in the garage, and I said, "Honey, what's for dinner?" I didn't hear anything. So I walked into the living room, and I said, "Honey, what's for dinner?" Still nothing. So I walked right up into the kitchen. There he was standing at the stove, and I said, "Honey, I've asked, what's for dinner?" And he said, "For the third time, it's chicken." So maybe it's me. But thank goodness for the pharmaceutical company. I'm taking something called HRT, hormone replacement therapy. Yeah, as my husband calls it, it's my anti-bitching cream. He's asked if I can get it in a 5-gallon spackle bucket. Yeah, so, but he's taking some drugs too. And I'm talking about the little blue pill, Viagra. Who knew at our age we could have such a thriving personal life? But there's side effects that you don't hear about with Viagra. Did you know that taking Viagra suppresses your appetite? The other day, I asked my husband what he wanted for breakfast, and he said, "I'm taking the blue pill, not hungry." A few hours later, I said, "Can I make you a sandwich for lunch?" He said, "I told you, I'm taking Viagra, I'm not hungry." A few hours later, I said, "You must be starving. What do you want for dinner?" And he said, "I'm still not hungry." So I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, "Well, can you roll off of me? I'm starving." So the other side effect for Viagra is that my husband wants to have sex everywhere. Just the other day, we were down at the AC Hotel. We were going to get a cocktail, bartender, up on the top floor. And my husband wanted to have sex on the elevator. I said, "Honey, that is wrong on every level." So my father's advice that had to do with health, which I think you should all write this down or try to remember. But my father used to say, it's better to be rich and healthy than poor and sick. So go with that. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. I was the youngest of 4 children. I had 3 older brothers. My family wasn't Mormon, like you might suspect coming from Salt Lake City. In fact, we were a family of 6. We didn't qualify as Mormon. Mormon families had 10 to 12, and that isn't even counting the wives. Which reminds me, why did the Mormon man cross the road? To get to the other bride. That's terrible. So my family, you gotta just try these jokes out, see if you get any laughs. That's how we learn. So my family was close. We were very close. Not that we liked each other, we grew up in a 2-bedroom house, so it was too close. My family played a lot of games growing up. I learned to gamble from my grandmother playing Yahtzee. She ran the first illegal preschool in Salt Lake. We also played a lot of cards. We were always playing cards. And in kindergarten, on the first day of school, the teacher wanted to know how high we could count. Well, Mark stands up and he can count to 8. And my friend Jill stands up, she can count to 10. And I raise my hand and the teacher calls on me and I said, I can count higher than 10. 8, 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King. So my brother Jim had been the baby for 7 years before I was born, and he was always very jealous of me and was always trying to find some way to take me out. Well, my parents sometimes, as we got older, would leave me under his care, which wasn't very smart. I remember one time when he cleared out a cabinet and he asked if I could fit inside. Well, I was always trying to impress my older brother, so I dutifully folded myself inside the cabinet. And then, of course, whammo, he shuts the door, locking me in that dark, tight cabinet. And I started screaming, help, let me out, let me out. And he, in his sinister voice, said, don't scream, you'll use up all your air. But I would do this again and again. I can't tell you how many times. And each time he would promise that he wouldn't shut me in. So if you're picturing Lucy with the football, pulling it away from Charlie Brown, that was me. And who knows, maybe that's why I'm loud. Get me out of here!
Julia Loughran, everybody. A blushing flower. Good job. Mormon family, but not. Lovely. Let's keep it rolling. Next person coming to the stage, a very funny lady. Let's give it up for Lorraine Lopez.
Okay, here we go. Thank you for coming today. A special shout out to the people who live in my building. So glad I took out the crazy neighbor jokes. Thanks for the heads up. You remember Louis, who snuck into the drive-in and had some misadventures in Greece. Well, that's my husband. He's my husband, and I'm really glad that you enjoyed his set. My name is Vaso. Lay along. Actually, I'm Lorraine Lopez. No relation to J-Lo. Resemblance is uncanny, I know. But she's actually not my twin sister. We're very different. I'm more dignified, more reserved, antisocial, some might say. I have a please leave me alone personality, and I love to gripe and complain. Loads of fun. I'm also a recovering English professor. I have a PhD, so I'm a doctor, but not the kind that will do you any good. Unless you're struggling with punctuation or you need to explicate Paradise Lost. When an emergency arises and someone says, "Is there a doctor in the house?" that person needs to be more specific. Otherwise, I might pop over to correct grammar. Now, you said he collapsed in front of my sister and I, but the preposition requires the object pronoun. It should be, he collapsed in front of my sister and me. As a recovering English professor, what I do have is a very particular set of skills. That quote in the movie Taken is actually ungrammatical. What Liam Neeson says is, what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Set of skills is singular, requiring the singular verb form is. But you educated people already know that, right? Clearly, I take words seriously. So I find redundancy in language hard to abide. That means I find redundancy in language hard to abide. Consider the phrase wink an eye. Is the eye really necessary? You can't wink an ear or an elbow, right? The same with shrugging shoulders or clapping hands. And what about false pretenses? As opposed to what? True pretenses? Misplaced modifiers also disturb me. Consider, for example, driving my car to work, a squirrel ran into the road. A, why did you lend your car to a squirrel? B, where does that squirrel work? Or, as a young child, my mother sewed all of my Halloween costumes. Here, the phrase as a young child modifies mother for one heck of a psychic kid. How did she know you'd be born? What kind of costumes you'd like? How did she get the sizes right? Double negatives bother me twice as much. One of the most irksome comes from a law firm that advertises on TV with this claim: nobody wants what they don't deserve. In the first place, absolutes. Everybody, nobody, all, none. Compromise truth every single time. Secondly, having what you don't deserve is a definition of privilege, and who doesn't want that? Think about it. Do we truly deserve all that we have? Do I deserve my car, my condo? Do I deserve the internet? Lately, Spectrum seems to feel that I do not. Before becoming a cluster of cells in the womb, what exactly did I do to deserve potable water and electricity? Don't get me wrong, I want those things. I absolutely want what I don't deserve. So maybe that TV commercial is spot on. Nobody wants what they don't deserve. Everybody does. As an English professor in recovery, I enjoy word games like Scrabble and Quiddler. Luckily for me, my husband does too. Remember singles classified ads back in the day, long before OkCupid and Grindr? Remember the ads that would say, looking for such and such for serious commitment, no games? I'd see those and think, no games? Oh, why the heck not? What are you supposed to do over dinner? Talk to each other? Good God. After moving to Asheville, my husband and I learned about the Scrabble Club here, and our eyes lit up. We headed over to the rec center that hosts the club and found ourselves playing several games over the next 4 hours. Yes, 4 hours of neck-tightening, back-burning, headache-inducing tile slinging with monosyllabic strangers every bit as odd as we are. We loved it. Since then, we've become regulars at the club that meets each Sunday. By the way, we're missing Scrabble Club to be with you here today. You're welcome. Lately, we've been preparing for a Scrabble tournament. We've been learning as many words as we can in order to play them, and also in order to be able to tell when an opponent is trying to slip in a phony baloney, a phony baloneyism. In a recent game against me, a man played tie-day, T-I-D-A-Y. What is that? The opposite of casual Friday? Turned out to be a fake. But I didn't know, because all kinds of words are allowable, while others are left out, while others are not allowed, while others are strangely not allowed. Like God, Merriam-Webster works in strange and mysterious ways, and the Scrabble dictionary has multiple words for extinct oxen, for obscure explosive gases, for Gaelic variations of just about everything. The Scrabble dictionary includes crocodile and croc, yet there's no listing for guac. Guacamole is allowed, but not guac. Outside of Scrabble Club, I never grope for a synonym for rhinoceros, Keitloa, or have reason to come up with a plural term for the coin used in ancient Rome, denarii. When ordering tacos, no one says, I'll have the Keitloa grilled corn tortilla, have you got change for 20 denarii? In everyday life, 7 words for a pile of rocks aren't that necessary. And I don't like to think about, much less need to know the technical term for the bolts that attach doors on an airplane. It's enough to know what to say when they pop out. Oh, shit. What's really needed is a handy one-syllable way to deal with the craving for mashed avocado. We need guac. Are you there, Merriam-Webster? It's me, L-Lo. Nobody doesn't like when people who compile dictionaries don't never listen to us. Right? No? And there you have it. Not quite done. Please leave me alone personality, recovering English professor, Scrabble fiend. I am living the life. Jennifer Lopez, eat your heart out.
Lorraine Lopez. Come on down. Great job. My favorite English teacher. Well, let's keep it rolling. I want you to meet a guy, also not from New York, but we'll get over it. Warm welcome for Barry King. See if you can tell where he's from. Barry King.
Hi, thanks for coming out today. I had a real tough time growing up. I won't say I was an ugly baby, but when my mother took me out for a carriage ride, she placed me face down in the carriage. She said when she turned me over, people would throw bananas in the carriage. We ate a lot of banana pudding at my house. After a few years, I turned into a skinny kid who wasn't very bright, but I did manage to memorize all 45 state capitals. When I was 7, I was diagnosed with CLS, that's chicken leg syndrome. The joke in my neighborhood was why did Barry cross the road? Coyotes chased me home from school. Once I was at the beach and 2 kids grabbed my legs and made a wish. My nickname was Rhode Island Red. Somehow I managed to make it to junior high where all kinds of things started happening to my body. Gallons of testosterone were suddenly pumped into my veins. Suddenly Free Willy took on a whole new meaning. I walked around with a never-ending pocket rocket. I went into grocery stores just to follow the produce. Seems like I always got excited at the worst possible times, like in English class, daydreaming about the centerfold in Playboy magazine, and suddenly Miss Freeze calling me to the front to give a book report. So I held my book in front of my pants and bent over double and moved up to the front, and Miss Freed said, "Barry, do not slouch. When you give a book report, you need to project confidence and stand erect." Well, 1 out of 2 ain't bad. Then one morning I woke up and I'm old and wrinkled and constipated. I still have pockets, but I don't have very few rockets. Now and I'm dealing with a swollen prostate, liver spots, and peeing 5 times every night. My memory and concentration aren't very good either. Last month I confused the Colgate with Preparation H. I've been sucking my meals through a straw ever since. However, my butt smells mini fresh. As I've gotten older, the hair on my head's turned gray and then it turned loose. Now it's regrowing, but not where I want it to. So I've given up looking in mirrors. When you're older, mirrors are not your friend. Who wants to look at a reflection of a Shar-Pei? Sometimes I don't trim as frequently as I need to. One morning I was washing up and I happened to glance in the mirror, and I thought a monkey had run up my nose. The hair hanging out was longer than Rapunzel's. If I'd stuck my head out the window, a prince would have climbed up. Last week I had to get my tag renewed. And the line was longer in the building than a list of indictments against Donald Trump, and slower than a slug going over a speed bump. Slow lines are a challenge when you're older. When I was a young guy, my sphincters were tighter than a condom on a watermelon. Now they've turned to jello. As I waited, my bladder started singing Cry Me a River, and my lower intestines filled with enough gas to survive a Canadian winter. As the line moved forward, I took a step and my rear sphincter collapsed. Now I'm talking about a force 10 on the Beaufort wind scale, probably an 8.0 on the Richter scale. Everyone left standing urged me to the front, where I grabbed my tag quickly, tightened my depends, and got out of there. Cornhole. You know that's a game? Why would you name a game after a felony? When I was a kid, you went to prison for that. Every time I hear that name, my butt pucker. Around middle age, my doctor started pushing me to have a colonoscopy. Now, we live in a country that's landed men on the moon and brought them home safely. You would think with that kind of technology, we could develop a test that doesn't include drinking 5 gallons of foul-tasting Prep. It's supposed to be flavored, but that's only if you consider snake venom a flavor. I drank all this stuff until I was as bloated as a tick at a blood bank. 2 hours later, I felt like a dysentery survivor. At the hospital, they wheeled me into a room colder than North Dakota in January, where I met a doctor with eyes that were emptier than Rudy Giuliani's bank account, and a nurse with tubing that would fit my car's radiator. On the floor, there was a chalk outline of a body. You talk about a testicle shrinking moment. Later, I woke up with a nurse standing by my bed, and she was holding wallet-sized pictures of my colon. The way my butt felt, they must have used a Polaroid. I don't have a clue what my colon looks like. It could have belonged to anybody. Identification would have required me to put my head between my legs and check. But the only people I know that can do that are called congressmen. And that's true, isn't it? How about Lauren Boebert? Speaking of colonoscopies, how about Lauren Boebert? She and her boyfriend were kicked out of a children's play for fondling each other. How does someone as useless as a pallbearer at a cremation get elected to Congress? By the way, if there are any Boebert fans out there, UNCA is a grope-free campus. One day we decided to get a bidet, and we found a unit online that connects to your existing commode. We ordered the deluxe model. It came with Bluetooth and a water pick feature. First month, our water bill was $800. It has 3 pressure settings: Babbling Brook, Spring Rain, and Cornhole. How about that HCA? They've taken an elite hospital and turned it into a Dollar General. They might need to rename it Mission Impossible. I don't know what HCA stands for, but it could be Horrendous Care in Asheville. Unfortunately, I had to go to the emergency room, and it looked like a Black Friday sale at Walmart. It was fuller than Dolly Parton's bra. At HCA, their idea of triage is if you don't pass away in the first 13 hours of waiting, you'll probably survive till the next shift change. But it only took them 3 minutes to get a copy of my credit card. This is the only hospital I've ever been to where the rooms have tip jars. And the lab techs wear coin changers. Profit's the name of the game. At check-in, they offer you term life policies, but that only covers your emergency room wait. So many doctors and nurses have left. HCA has been forced to hire witch doctors. After a 15-hour wait, I finally saw one of the new hires, and he gave me a bag of garlic and a jar of leeches and sent me home. Last week, I got the updated COVID vaccine. With so many of them out there, it's hard to know which one's best. Pfizer, Moderna, William & Mary. Finally, I went to Ingalls and took the Laura Lynn version. It was developed right here in Asheville. But it's only available in suppository form. The pharmacist administers it in the drive-through window. It's painless and you get 200 gas points. Speaking of suppositories, how about that Marjorie Taylor Greene? If she went through the Ingalls drive-through for the vaccine, they would know which end to insert the suppository. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Barry King, everybody. That's great. Well, we got one more. Oh, you're leaving at the wrong time, because I want to introduce the funniest guy I know. Yeah, you're clapping now. Wait a few minutes. So, in contrast to Barry and his southern roots, you might notice from my twang that I'm not a native Ashevillean. I was born and raised in Bayside, Queens, New York. The safest place on the planet growing up in the 50s, once you were outdoors. Inside, not so much. The street I lived on in Bayside, we called Ittsville. And that's because we had Markowitz, Abramowitz, all the Itzes. My name is Robbins. I went to my grandfather. I said, Pop, I need a Jewish name. He said, how about Putz? Add insult to injury, he was our rabbi. I know, you feel sorry for me. Not bad. So a distinction between Asheville and growing up in New York is driving. Down here, if I'm driving behind a tractor, I'm more or less behind the tractor. In New York, we cut people off to get places we don't even want to go. Take this wedding. It was a long drive, and I had to go. I couldn't stand the bride, but I had to go. It was my wedding, so I had to go. Things started poorly. When my grandfather, Pop, put the glass on the floor, he said, let's watch Randy put his foot down for the last time. And sadly, he was right. I married an alpha woman, and I don't do well with alpha. Not great with beta either, I have to say. Ladies, how many of you read to your guys from women's magazines? Well, let me mansplain. Don't. One day I'm sitting watching a football game, and she's reading from Cosmo. And I hear the universal sign of pay attention. I look up. She says, it says here that men do not pay careful attention to genital hygiene. Now, what I thought was, what? But what I said was, what? And she replied, wash your balls. And we were married a long time. I wanted to please her. So I said, I'll wash them. I'll wax them. You have to give them back to me first. Don't feel sorry for me. There's a law in New York called equitable distribution. And as a result, I got one back in the divorce. So I hope you appreciated the work of my class today. Let's hear it for my comics. About 25 years ago, I took a class similar to what I teach now, and I learned a lot. Oh, I loved it. I had an instructor, and I followed him around to various clubs to watch him MC shows. And one time, I mean, he was fearless. One time he asked someone in the third row, what do you do for a living? And the guy said, I disinfect bowling shoes. He says, that is the worst job I have ever heard of. Points to the guy next to him, what do you do? I'm his assistant. So once I saw that, I felt, hey, I can do that too. So the one time I got to perform at the Improv in New York, I stood there and I asked the audience a question. And I got the same response that I'm getting right this very second, dead silence. I said, people, please, I need feedback. And a voice from the very back of the room calls out, you suck. It was my sister. Immature, would you agree? Yeah, so I called mommy. A lot of good that did. In New York, if you wanted to perform at an open mic, you needed to bring at least 6 paying customers. They would have to pay a cover charge and a 2-drink minimum. One time, I sent out 193 emails soliciting friends or people I knew to come and see me perform. I got back one response. Delete me from your mailing list. I heard you suck. Love, mommy. More recently, I went on ChatGPT. Familiar with it? Show of hands. Okay, you put in some variables and they'll print you out, they'll send you a response to what you're asking for. So I put in, I would like a 5-minute stand-up comedy routine. And I put in variables, grew up in Bayside, the 50s, all the things that I've told you so far. And I get back a response. We're deleting you from our list. You won't be surprised to know I was a special ed teacher in New York City for 34 years. I worked with severely emotionally disabled children. And it was quite the experience. But just a brief example of what it was like. My job mostly was crisis intervention. If a kid is disrupting a class, it's my job to get him out, settle down, and back to class as quickly as possible. That's my job. One day I was called into the room of a 3rd grade class, and I had to remove a kid. I put my hand on his shoulder to guide him out. He said, "Don't touch me, faggot." All right, I'm a professional, I can handle this. Get him into the timeout room, find out what the problem was. It seems his bus was late, his teacher rushed him, and he didn't get enough breakfast. So he was mad and he acted out. So I got him some cereal, some milk, a banana. We talked about name calling, how inappropriate that is, and hurtful. Got him back to class. Great day, great success for me, great success for him. Next week, the same 3rd grader had to be removed, but he was having none of it. And he called me in front of everybody, a big, fat, stupid, white, ugly motherfucker. Now, most of that's true. But ugly? That hurt. I have a very addictive personality. Throughout the years, I've been addicted to sugar, tobacco, weed, sex, gambling. I've been to 12-step programs like you've never heard of. You know, Steve Martin, the famous one, in his autobiography wrote, in the 1970s, sexual intercourse was just another way of saying hello. Well, I tried to say hello to a lot of women in the 70s. And you'll be surprised at this. I'm apparently not as cool as I look. Because I was having trouble. So shamefully, hard to admit, but you won't tell anybody. I went to a meeting of Sexaholics Anonymous, hoping to meet a woman who might be available. And I learned that that's not quite the way to go. Because she said, a woman, very attractive woman, who I had my eyes on, or upon whom I had my eyes. Is that right? You weren't listening? There you go. She said, I couldn't really begin to recover from this disease until I learned to love myself. And I said, honey, I could love myself 3-4 times a day. I still want to hook up. Yeah, they asked me to leave. So I've been to OA, Overeaters Anonymous, NA, Narcotics Anonymous, GA, Gamblers Anonymous, SLAA, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, you name it. Well, once I met a woman in New York, and she gave me her phone number. Oh, I was so excited. Put it away that night. I went home, looked at it, 5 digits. She gave me her zip code. Zip code was in Iowa. So I went to Iowa. I didn't find her, but I did find in a rural town an anonymous meeting that I had never heard of before. Maybe you've heard of it. It seems to be only in rural areas. It's called, oh my God, what's it called? BAA, Barnyard Animals Anonymous, colloquially known as BA. But it's a recovery meeting, and I sat there and I listened to a guy, and he's standing there and he says, thanks to God and the 12-step program of BA, I have not been with a female sheep since May 11th, 1989, for which I'm very grateful. Someone heard him say sheep, and he went, ew. Anyway, everyone stopped and applauded, and go, Jim, what a guy. Good job. He waited for it to quiet down, and he said, I haven't been with a male sheep since Tuesday. There you go. So the woke movement, this is the last thing I want to talk about, has ruined some of the great literature for children of all time. And I'm not talking about Snow White, you know, living with 7 dirty old men, okay? Or in Sleeping Beauty, the prince who got busted because he didn't ask permission to kiss Sleeping Beauty. I'm talking about real literature. I grew up learning how to read from the Dick and Jane Reader. Anybody familiar with it? Okay, well, they don't use it anymore. Apparently, there's something wrong with the language. Let me read to you. Tell me what you think. Jane said, I cannot find Dick. Help me, Sally. Help me find Dick. Sally said, Father, we cannot find Dick, and we cannot play. Father said, look, girls, look, look, look. Here is Dick. Here is Big Dick. Mother said, no, girls, that is not Big Dick. Here is Bubba. Here is Big Dick. The next chapter, when grandfather comes to town, you don't want to miss it. So I do children's shows. Tip your waiter. I want to thank you for coming. I want to remind you that outside we have a tip jar to benefit OLLI. Please be generous. And thank you so much for coming and enjoying the afternoon with us. Great to see you.